Today we're going to talk about attributes of linear functions, and in order to get these attributes, there's like what makes up a linear function. And we're going to be discussing the form y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b is called slope-intercept form. And we call it slope-intercept form because your slope is represented by the coefficient of the x, and your y-intercept is represented by the constant, the y-intercept. All right, so now in order to write an equation in slope-intercept form, given a slope and a y-intercept, we're just going to plug these values in for the m and the b. Your m is your slope, your b is your y-intercept. So my first equation, if I plug in 5/2 for m, I've got y equals 5/2 x, and I'm plugging in a 0 for b plus 0. But here's the thing. We don't just write plus 0 onto something because it doesn't change what we originally had. When you add or subtract 0, you're changing nothing. So we simplify that and express it just as y equals 5/2 x. But it's important to know when you don't have that plus b written to the side that it's because you're crossing the y-axis at the origin and it's 0. The second one, where we've got a slope of 6 and a y-intercept of 4. So we'll plug those in. 6 goes in place of the m, 4 goes in place of the b. Now, if this sign changes from a positive to a negative, it's because we plugged in a negative y-intercept. But right here you can see we stayed with a positive value. All right, now, looking at the graph, we're going to take out, or we're going to look at the graph and find the slope, the y-intercept, the x-intercept, and we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So the two things that we need to write our equation in slope-intercept form are the slope and the y-intercept. All right, we don't need an x-intercept to write our equation in slope-intercept form, but remember that the x-intercept is just where we cross this x-axis right here. So if we want to emphasize the x and the y, we can do that just to make sure we're paying attention to the axes. Okay, so let's look at our slope. To find our slope, we're going to count from one point to another. Now, since we already need our y-intercept, sometimes it's best to start there on the y-axis so we can see, oh, well, I'm crossing the y-axis way up there at 5, 0. Well, that's one of our points. And then when I scan through here, some of these points look really close, but I don't really get another definitive point until right here at -3, -2. Now, I've seen students count from one point to the other, but remember, when you are finding slope, you are looking at the rise over the run. So always count your vertical distance before you count your horizontal distance. Otherwise, you'll get your ratio backwards. You'll have the reciprocal. All right, so I'm going to count starting from my point at the furthest left, and I'm going to go across and over to the point on the right. So I'm starting here, and I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up 7, and then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3 to the right. Both of those directions were positive, and since both of those directions were positive, I'm going to end up with a positive slope. So my slope is 7/3. All right, my y-intercept, we already found it right here on the y-axis, and so that point, if we put it in as a coordinate, is 0, 5. Now, I've got everything that I need to write my equation of my line. I got my slope, and I've got my y-intercept. This value is what I need right there. So my equation in the form y equals mx plus b is y equals 7/3 x plus 5. This is your m, this is your b. Okay, now here's the thing. Where do we cross the x-axis? Well, we cross the x-axis right here, just a little ways down from -2. I don't know exactly what it is by looking at my graph, so I have to find it. And to find it, what I'm going to do is use my equation, and I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So to find the x-intercept, and you don't have to do this every single time. It's only if you can't determine what that exact value is. You're going to plug in 0 for y, because on the x-axis, whatever that point is right there, I know that y is going to be 0. So every point on here, the y is equal to 0. So plug in 0, plug in 0 for y, and solve. So now we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. Subtract the 5, and we've got -5 equals 7/3 x. Now, there's multiple ways to do this next step. One, we have to get rid of this coefficient. So the coefficient attached to x is 7/3, so you could divide by 7/3. But that gets kind of ugly when you try plugging that into the calculator. And you're going to end up with an ugly little decimal number. So I want to show you how to do it so you can get the exact value. I need this 7/3 to be a 1x, not a 7/3 x. So to get a fraction equal to 1, we multiply it times its reciprocal. And when you multiply times the reciprocal, you end up with 7 times 3 is 21, over 3 times 7, which is 21, and 21 divided by 21 is equal to 1. So that's how you end up eliminating that coefficient. But you have to multiply the other side by 3/7 as well. Now, don't get panicky. Multiplying with fractions is super easy. You multiply your numerator. 3 times -5 is -15. And you multiply your denominator. 7 times 1 is 7. And voila, you are done. So we actually cross at a -15/7, comma 0, which is about -2 point something, just over 2.1, and that's about where we are right there. So you can kind of verify it that way as well. Number 4, we're taking a look here. I'm finding my definitive points to get my slope. I've got a point right there at 0, 2, so that's going to be my y-intercept. And then I've got another point, oh looky right there, at 2, 0, that's my x-intercept. So that's perfect. I don't have to do all of this nonsense. I got it exactly. But I do need to count my rise over my run, and I want you to notice that this slope is going down. So automatically you should identify that this is going to be a negative slope right here, because we're going from left and right, we're going down. So when I count, I'm going to do my vertical distance first, and my vertical distance goes down by 2. My horizontal distance increases by 2. So I end up with a -2 over a +2. So a -2 over a +2, and that reduces down to a -1. We always simplify our slope. Always put it in simplest form. Reduce the fraction, divide if you have to get a whole number, but always simplify. Now, the only thing I need to write my equation is my slope and my y-intercept. So our equation is going to be y equals a -x. I'm not putting that 1 there. It's redundant. We know that this is only 1x, so there's no reason to write the 1 in front of it. Negative 1, or so negative x plus 2, because this is my y-intercept. And we're finished with that. So that one was a little bit quicker and easier to work with. Number 5, all right, let's find two definitive points. I can see I've got a definitive point right here on my y-axis, and that is point 0.05. And I, darn it, don't have a definitive point on my x-axis. So let's go through here and see where I do have one. Booyah, right there at 3, -3. Okay, so I am going to have to do some work to find my x-intercept. Now, again, my slope is negative because it's going down. So we've got to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I went down by 8. And then 1, 2, 3. So I went a +3. So my slope, rise over run, is -8/3. All right. Plug this into your slope-intercept form of an equation, and you've got y equals -8/3 x plus 5. Now, we're going to have to do this big ugly, like we did earlier, to find our exact x-intercept. And I know that my x-intercept is almost to 2. Almost, just not quite. So remember, what did we do? Find x-intercept, plug in 0 for y. 0 equals a -8/3 x plus 5. Solve for x. Subtract 5 from both sides. And then I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of that fraction. Now, since the fraction was negative, we got to multiply by a negative because we can't have our coefficient to be a -1. We want it to be a +1. But then I got to multiply the other dang side by the -3/8 as well. All right, so this simplifies to 1. Put my whole number over 1 there. Multiply your numerator, you get a +15. Multiply the denominator, you get 8. So 15/8 is your x-intercept. So 15 divided by 8, 0. All right, so to reiterate, the two things you need to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form is your slope and your y-intercept. And when you are on your x-axis, your y-coordinate is always 0. When you're on your y-axis, the x-coordinate is always 0. And to find your slope, do your rise, which is your vertical distance, over your run, which is your horizontal distance.